Why is your email text so narrow? That's what an audience member recently asked me, and I have the answer coming up in this video along with some original research about email line width and click-through rates. Stay tuned. Hey, Matt here, the founder of Autogrow.co, and this is another video that I'm really excited to present to you today because in this video, it's original research that we've been compiling for the last couple of weeks. We've been testing out some ideas and putting together the data for you. And I'm going to present that to you here to answer the question of, should you be sending emails to your email list that are designed where the text is narrow in width or wide, and which is better and why, based on what you're looking to actually achieve. And I'm going to give you a fair and balanced answer by looking at what other people and other existing research has to say. Plus, I'm going to interpret the data and tell you why I think it came out the way that it did. All right. So once again, welcome to another Matt Hacks video where I give you marketing tips, actual marketing tips to help you be more marketing awesome and otherwise accelerate your creativity and entrepreneurial spirit. So let's jump into it. So here's the original question that inspired us to do this research and create this video. It's from Andres Wellesi, and Andres asked about several weeks ago, he said, "Hi Matt, I really enjoy reading your content, but I'm also really annoyed by the way you format your text and your emails. Everyone else writes like this, text, 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 in the wide format. Why do you write like this, text, 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 with more of a narrow format of design? I really don't get it, and I am sure I am not the only one who is annoyed." Andres, thank you so much for that question. Bottom line is, Andres is wondering, why are your emails formatted with the narrow column? And brief story behind this is I read some anecdotal research in the past that talked about the effort that the human eye had to expend to go from one line to the next. And on emails or text in general, whether you're reading a book or a web page, when the eye has to go from the end of one line to the next, shorter lines were more comfortable, I read, because the human eye, the end of the line was closer to the beginning of the next, so the human eye peripherally could see what line was coming up next and just do a quick, what's called a carriage return. It's an old term, with typewriters, like you type, 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 that's a carriage return. And that's what the human eye does, is a carriage return when you go to the next line. But because of Andres's question, I said, you know what? Let's actually put together some research, because we have a big enough email list where we can create statistics, or we can get statistics that are going to be statistically relevant. In other words, whatever we're testing for, we can achieve a conversion rate. We can achieve at least 300 conversions for each test case. In this case, we tested for clicks. We wanted to see which version of the emails would result in the highest or higher click-through rate. Would it be the narrow version or would it be the wide version? So here's exactly how the numbers came out. So we tested this across 16 different email campaigns, and basically every day we flipped a coin. We would test the narrow width one day and we would test the wide width another day. So this way we were able to test the narrow width and the wide width both with people who were receiving our newsletter, which would go out to 12,000 plus email subscribers, as well as people, the list was smaller, between 2,000 to 4,000 people each time we sent it out for the Matt Hacks videos. And based on that, we were able to achieve a statistically significant, that's one term from college that I will never forget, statistically significant. Thank you, stats class, you finally came in handy. Yay, school. All right, statistically significant because total for each version, we were able to drive over 300 clicks total. And that's important because that means that the data is therefore going to be more reliable, and we can say with confidence that the results could be replicated and get a similar result, perhaps in your case, certainly in our case. All right, so what we found was that the narrow version, just ignore these, this was the sum of the numbers over here and the sum, And then this was, the average, so divided by 8, since we did 8 for each. So the click-through rate for the narrow version was about 1.6% if you round it up, and 1.4% for the wide version. All right. And what does that mean? Well, the narrow version generated a click-through rate that was over 10% higher when you calculate it out. And that means that may not sound like a lot, but let's say that you're sending an email only 12 times a year, an important email that's going to generate 100 clicks each to your email list, and you get an extra 10 each time, or you don't in this case. That's, over the course of a year, that's 120 potential email subscribers that you're missing out on who would have clicked through. And if you had an average conversion rate of, 10% on your sales page that you're driving to, that's 12 sales that you're leaving on the table that you may not have otherwise gotten. All right. So that being said, let's take a look at what other people's research has said on this point. So here's some research that was featured in an article from uxmovement.com a few years ago, and they cited a couple of research studies. I clicked on these links. They were pointing over to wichita.edu. I've never heard of that college, but when I try to visit the links for the PDFs that where the research is cited from, they don't actually load. So, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they were working previously and the research was done. And what they said, because they said they tested different line lengths based on the number of characters on each line, all right? So they said that they tested 35, 55, 75, 95, and they found that longer line lengths, in this case, the 95 CPL, that means characters per line, so that means you count one letter as a character, including spaces. Longer lines were actually faster to read, all right? However, people, anecdotally, they said that people felt like they were reading faster even though they weren't on the shorter line lengths. And then they get into more detail on why that's the case. They also had another interesting tidbit from this research study where they said that the liquid layout versus the fixed width layout with margins increased reading comprehension level. In other words, people better understood what they were reading and were probably better able to retain the information. Here's some other data presented by the Baymerd Institute, baymerd.com. And what they write on their expertise is user experience as well. They start the article off talking about how 50 to 60 characters is considered to be the ideal, and they cite a source, but they don't link to anything, and they don't say why that was the case from the source that they cited. Then they go on to say that other sources, that up to 75 characters is acceptable. And they talk about the pros and the cons to each. So they mentioned that, for example, if it's too wide, as I said earlier, this kind of supports what I was saying earlier, that the reader's eye will have a hard time focusing on the text, because if it's too wide, when you do the carriage return, you might lose your place and go on to the incorrect line. If it's too narrow, what they say is that this can stress readers, making them begin on the next line, finishing the current one. And maybe that's what Andres was feeling when he originally wrote in. And then they say something else that's interesting anecdotally. It turns out that the subconscious mind is energized when jumping to the next line, as long as it doesn't happen too frequently. See above bullet point. And this is, I believe, the argument for starting off articles like on a blog where it's thin for the first few lines, or it's just a short couple of lines, and then it's wider. And I've seen this on some of our most popular blog posts from several years ago that we published that are still popular. We actually used that technique where the first couple of lines were short and sweet, very thin, and then the paragraphs moved back to kind of a normal width because we put like an image along the side. So that backs up some other anecdotal research that I've read. And so they kind of conclude here that the ideal width is between 50 to 75 characters. And that's their conclusion. Whereas when you come over to Smashing Magazine, this article written by Laura Franz, who is a professor at the University of Dartmouth, she teaches a class specifically on web typography for graduate students. And she cites research here from a 2006 Nielsen group study, pretty credible source, where they did eye tracking research. And she basically, breaks it down in more of a nuanced way that you really have to understand that people read in different ways. They read casually, they scan with purpose, they read in an engaged manner, right? We don't read every word individually. Okay, makes sense. And that's kind of the argument for not just line width, but in terms of how you structure it, in terms of bolding things, highlighting things, making it more like an outline that you can skim and scan when you're trying to communicate information. Because a lot of people, especially today, where we're bombarded by text messages, social media notifications, we're just kind of just cherry picking information because we get so much of it. So it's also possible that this study is therefore out of date, because this study was actually conducted before smartphones and tablets became as popular as they are, and probably reprogrammed our brain chemistry, but that's speculation. So now I just want to conclude by giving you my interpretation of the data. So let's click back here. And I want to say that I think that this data for us is definitive, that I think that statistically, if clicks was all that we cared about, that this would work to drive the maximum number of clicks. However, it is not proof. What it is not proof of is that people will have a better, happier, non-stressful, if you will, non-annoying, to use Andres' word, reading experience. So what I'm actually interested in is I'd like you to leave a comment on this video and let me know, what do you find more enjoyable? Because I believe it's so important to balance the qualitative with the quantitative in terms of research. Because if we just cared about clicks, sure, the 10% sounds great, but maybe we're better able to communicate, and maybe we can form a better quality relationship with our subscribers. Even if the click rate is lower, maybe the overall end conversion rate in terms of people who want to share our content, who want to become customers over time, maybe that's going to be higher if we provide a better reading experience, even if the click rate isn't 10% higher. So which do you prefer? Do you prefer the narrow format, like what you see here, which in terms of the CPL, characters per line, is about 33, 35 in this example? Or do you prefer the wider width format, which it falls into that range of about 60 to 75 characters, which you see here in this format? However, beware of confirmation bias, because you may say, okay, like I want to drive more clicks, therefore I think that this wider format is better. Beware of that. Actually, maybe pause the video and read the beginning of this newsletter, and then read the introduction to this newsletter as well, and then leave a comment. Just kind of watch yourself. Do you feel that your eyes are more straining as you kind of move through the newsletter, or do you find that one is more comfortable versus another? All right, so leave a comment, let me know what you prefer, and let me know what you think about this research. All right, my overall conclusion is that the best answer is probably somewhere in the middle, in that we can provide a better, happier, more enjoyable reading experience, like in the case of Andres, because Andres' words, I think, are very reflective of what he felt as he was actually reading. Someone doesn't use the word annoying and actually take the time to write an email as detailed as he did if he wasn't actually feeling stressed from reading the newsletter. So I suspect that if we increase the width, instead of going all the way out to 95 characters per line, which is what that one of those studies suggested, I think that the answer is more in the middle, probably around 50 to 60 characters per line. So we can still get the benefit of a higher click-through rate while also providing an easier on the eyes reading experience, all right? So here's the one action that I want you to take with your next newsletter. I want you to change the line width so that it is in that range of 50 to 60 characters per line. And I want you to apply margins so that along the sides there's some white space, all right, to increase reading comprehension, as that one study cited. So that's it for today. To never miss out on another math hack, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to hit the subscribe button as well as subscribe via email, and that way you get it in your inbox. If you're watching this on our blog, there's an option to opt in with your email directly below this video. And if you like this video, you like this research, you find it useful, appreciate you sharing it on social media and liking this video on YouTube. So tune in next time when I show you the advantage of having a segmented email list versus one that is not segmented, and I give you hard data to back it up. All right. So once again, my name is Matt Hack in the Matt Hat, delivering you your daily dose of Matt Hacks. Keep hustling, stay focused. I'll talk to you soon.